Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sagittarius July 2021 self-connection reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and meeting-based spiritual coaching services. I am Lauren. Welcome. So this is one of 3 connection readings I read for each month for each sign. This self-connection reading is all about bringing awareness and connecting you with yourself. The spiritual connection reading is about connecting your unique internal authentic self with your external environment to be able to see place and purpose. And we have our love connection reading, which looks at how you connect your unique internal authentic self with the unique internal authentic selves of others. And obviously, we look at the general energy of love as well as romantic love. Okay, so for the self-connection reading, we are going to go ahead and pull 3 cards. Now we're going to pull a card for each of the 3 principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation. And these 3 principles make up the Triad of Engagement, which is a coaching tool I've developed for my practice, which basically take a look at how when you combine these 3 very simple principles together, you can help unlock and engage with your unique internal authentic self, but also be able to then see how engaging that in a productive way with your external environment can unlock for you place, purpose, emotional fulfillment, and the ability to really see where you fit into the greater collective experience, so that you can start to answer your own I am question. If you notice in the description box below, I start off right away with I am a spiritual coach. And it took me a long time to get to that place, to be able to even come close to being able to answer that I am question when somebody asked, who are you? And this is what all of my readings are here to help you start to answer for yourself. Okay, Sagittarius. So we are going to pull a Power of Surrender card for the concept of curiosity to basically get an overarching theme, a question for the month that you're going to kind of keep in mind to turn the power of curiosity inwards towards yourself. And when I'm talking about the power of curiosity, I'm talking about the power of optimism, openness, receptivity, the power of being able to tap into that childlike sense of awe and wonder where we are judgment-free, where we are removing the blocks that as we get older can prevent us from actually tapping into the power of curiosity, where we end up kind of, instead of being, ooh, what's coming up around the bend, we instead are fearful. We close ourselves off. We don't want to have to go through that again. We start to tell ourselves, well, we already know about what happens when I do this. Or I already know I'm like this and I'm just like this and I can't change. And that's when we lose connection. We lose the ability to really tap into the power of curiosity, which is that we are constantly learning, we are constantly growing, we're constantly evolving, even on a spiritual and emotional level, on an internal level. So we're going to see here, what does Sagittarius need to, what's their point of curiosity for the month of July for Sagittarius? Sometimes these cards take a while to come out. I apologize. It's kind of, ooh, and as I say that, of course, the card comes out. Okay, so we have surrender to what is. And it says, flow with what is instead of fighting it. When you can't change a situation, compassionately accepting it exactly as it is will bring you peace. Now, when we're thinking about building in a question. So we're talking about curiosity, right? And curiosity is generally going to involve asking a question. And we're directing this question back to ourselves. What I would ask you here is, what is an area right now that you are sitting with that you feel that you are that's making you feel less than in flow, meaning that you feel a little bit like you're swimming upstream. So, when we look at this and say flow with what is instead of fighting it, I mean, this is, easier said than done, right? We can often, I think especially here in America, we are really submerged in a culture that says, no, to be successful, you have to keep pushing through. You have to keep, even when it feels tough, even when it looks like it's not working out, we have to just keep pushing ourselves and pushing ourselves, because it's that last push that finally gets us to what we want or where we want to go. But sometimes when we get to a point where that's all we're doing, where we feel like our entire life experience is just this constant battle, this pushback, this can end up looking like where you go to work and you feel like you're pushing against the system at work, where you're just over the systems and the structures and the rules in place, and you feel like every time you have an idea, it's not heard, or you're constantly trying to fight against inefficiencies. Or bringing this into your personal life, this is where I think a lot of us can actually get into this, a stagnancy of frustration, where we're constantly trying to either push ourselves into financial abundance on a certain level, and we're not happy until we get there, or we are trying to change the actions of a partner that a romantic partner, or we are trying to change the behaviors of a family member. And we think that if we keep putting energy towards something, if we keep putting, I just have to keep pushing harder at work to show them why that's inefficient, or I have to keep pushing harder with my partner to make them aware of what they need to change or how they need to change. That what we end up realizing is that we're losing connection with our seat of personal control, which is inside of us. We cannot control what is external to us. And it's I'd like to say it's a sad fact, but it's a very real fact. We cannot control what is coming up around the bend, which is always change. Change is the only constant, the only thing we can truly rely on in our external environment. In addition to that, we cannot control another. We cannot control their reactions, we cannot control their actions, and we don't have the ability to change them either, to change their perspective, to pretty much change any part of their experience that they don't want to have changed. So when we start to push too much on an external level for change, instead of bringing it back to where we can actually start to effectively create change here first within ourselves, which is what we can control. So the beautiful dynamic, and this is how we re-engage with life, where we engage in a positive, productive way, is that we constantly remind ourselves that the seat of control is within ourselves. That we are able to, if we want to change something out there, we change something in here first. So this is a perfect question to start asking yourself this month, as far as trying to open up what aspect of yourself you can work with and change to help alleviate whatever you've been trying to change in your external environment, whatever you feel like you've been fighting against out there. So for instance, this could look like, let's say work is frustrating you. Let's say it's gotten to the point now where you are just tired of the inefficient structure to how things work, and you've tried to bring things up as to how it could be better. Or you constantly are having an issue with one of your coworkers and trying to work around them or with them, and it just doesn't seem to be changing anything. Well, then what you can do this month is to bring that back to yourself, bring the power back to yourself, to say, well, what can I do within myself to change this feeling that I'm fighting against my work environment or my coworker. And that could look like I'm going to change my perspective on this. I'm going to choose to change my perspective to one of I enjoy where I work. I'm grateful for what I do. And ultimately, I have one of two things. If you are frustrated with the inefficiencies and you have yet to actually put together a professional proposal to sit down with your manager or your boss and to say, I have put together a proposal to show some areas that I think after being here for X amount of time need to be addressed, and it's solution based, and you positively and optimistically share it with them, that this is a way for you to bring the power and the control back to you. Instead of every day going into work and being like, oh my God, I'm so tired of having to do X, Y, and Z, when in reality, I should just be able to do, J, K, and L or whatever. That you bring it back to you and you bring it back to your seat of power of being able to actually affect change in your external environment through your own actions, not through trying to force somebody else, the structure to change just through complaining or trying to passively aggressively circumvent rules that are in place. Instead, bring it back and take the time, invest your own time and energy into creating something that then you can propose in a professional way. Now, from that point forward, you can't control the reaction. If your manager, your boss, your workplace comes back and says, we don't care, we don't want to hear it, thanks but no thanks, well then this gets to bring the power back again to you to be able to say, okay, is this where I want to stay? I don't have to stay here. I can realize my own needs. I can reconnect with my own internal authentic self, and I can start the process of looking for something else. But it has to first start with accepting what is, with accepting that my workplace has these systems set in place. There are these rules. There are these things that I have to navigate every day. That my boss, and one of them is that my boss believes in these rules. Now, if I choose to stay here, I can release that fight and just say, you know what, it could be done 100 different better ways, but at the end of the day, it's not my business. And you can just release it. So that's another way that you can kind of release this frustration around trying to fight and push and push. Again, you are looking for ways that you can control your experience. Remember, you are the only one living your life experience. No one else is meant to live your life experience except for you, just as everybody else is living theirs. And so if you feel like you're fighting and you don't feel in flow, well, then it's on you to be able to take responsibility for yourself to make that change internally. So again, it's either deciding to take action towards demonstrating, it's more of I'd say, positive solution, outward-based strategy to help alleviate the frustration with the inefficiencies of your job. Or you can choose to take more of a passive way, not passive-aggressive, but passive, where you change your perspective and say, you know what? Why does it bother me so much? Why do I care? I just need to check in from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., do my job. These are the rules they give me. I just need to follow them and get the job done. So it's one of two things. It depends on the type of personality that you are. And so this is how we start to unlock and work with who we are. Are we more of the pusher who wants to initiate change from us? Or are we somebody who are we more internal and we want to just work on changing our own perspective, work on instead of pushing outward for a solution, we work on creating the solution within ourselves. So this is a great way to kind of get a chance to get to know that part of yourself. But first you have to really see what's around you. I love this surrender to what is, because this can also be in the home life where it's about realizing, okay, this is what is. So what is the reality of my life? I think a lot of times when we feel out of flow as well, and I know because I've experienced this myself, when we feel out of flow, it's because we're constantly either fantasizing or imagining this, like, I don't know what, everything will be perfect when. That we're constantly kind of comparing our current present moment to this, I want to be here. I want to be, when I live in my perfect house, when I have my perfect family, when I have my perfect setup. And so we're constantly in this state of kind of discontent, while also mixing a little bit of our imagination with kind of a little bit of, with a little bit of fantasy, so that we're never really tapped into what is. Tapping into the fact that, no, I live in this 2-bedroom condo, this is what I'm working with, and I'm here for an extended period of time. So I better start living here in the now, instead of constantly feeling frustrated that I'm not there in the now and wasting my time connecting authentically with my current space, because I constantly have my 1 foot half in that world. And that's where we really get to be disconnected. We not only disconnect from ourselves, but we don't actually appreciate in the moment what we have. This is where we end up kind of never fully moving into a place, or we move into an apartment and we're like, it's just temporary. I'm saving for this and I'll get there. And this is where you spend 3 years in an apartment that you've barely purchased furniture for. And the whole time you could have been really living in this space and enjoying this space and having people over and decorating it the way that you want to. You just are still living with the stuff you moved in with. Maybe you've purchased one additional thing and you keep telling everybody, don't worry about it, like, I'm going to be moving soon. But are you? Is that what is right now? Do you have a place lined up? So it's almost like you have to take a step back, look at the reality of the situation that you're in right now, and find ways to connect your internal authentic self with emotional connection to what is. And then bring the power back to yourself to really realize, well, what part of this experience in this area specifically is, why do I feel like I'm fighting something? Why do I feel so frustrated? Why don't I feel like I'm just in flow? Where is the lack of the sense of ease around me and my work environment, or me and my home environment? So as we're thinking about that, as we're thinking about how we need to, take a look at, okay, the reality of what I'm working with, and how can I start to change myself to change what's in my external environment. Now we're going to jump into, I'm going to pull a animal oracle card for the concept of courage. Now, courage is where we get to tap into that power of our own personal control. This is where we get the chance to have courage, to make the decisions, to take action from a place of authenticity. So let's say you realize, as you're thinking about, let's say, your work world, your work life, that you would like to put together a proposal to demonstrate areas of inefficiency and to show how those could be solved through maybe something that you've seen a better way to do. Well, now you know that you are that type of person. But now you can be curious about that all you want, but until you actually take action, until you have the courage to actually set up that meeting with your boss and present your proposal, in reality, you're not engaging authentically with yourself. You're not taking action on behalf of yourself. Instead, you're just Now, awareness is 50% of the equation, but the other 50% is action. And so this is where now you have to tap into courage to take the action. And yes, it can be scary. It can even be scary to simply just do the more passive perspective change. To sit there and say, well, I'm just going to kind of throw up my hands and do the whole, Carrie Underwood, Jesus, take the wheel. I don't know why that came into my mind, but it is kind of like that. There's this element of a true release of, well, this is just work. Does it define me? Or can I simply leave at 5 o'clock and find another aspect of my life that defines me? When I'm thinking about answering my own I am question, it doesn't always have to be tied to a career or my place of work. Instead, I could be answering my own I am question in a variety of other ways. It doesn't involve me having to push back and trying to force my workplace to provide me with meaning. So in looking at that, you can simply just kind of throw your hands up and say, so then what do I care as to the rules and the inefficiencies and the whatever? I can just, again, follow the rules, do the stuff they tell me to do, clock out, and then, but this is where it can get hard, and this is where the courage comes into play with taking a kind of passive perspective change to accepting a situation as it is then you have to realize, okay, well, if this work isn't really defining who I am, and I'm kind of releasing my tie to it on a certain level, then what am I going to fill that with? What am I, when I leave at 5 o'clock at night instead of maybe working late, or when I release the frustration that's constantly been around pushing in my job, and I'm no longer doing that, well, now where am I going to redirect that energy? Do I have a side hobby? Am I connected to my family? Do I want to, leave work at 5 o'clock and release my tie to, being so invested here, to reinvest where? And so these are the things that we start to ask ourselves to help kind of open up our eyes to where we might better fit. Now, the card for courage that came up is Fox Spirit. The number 27 breaking down to the number 9. And it says, think on your feet. Which I think is really cool, actually, for courage. Because when we're thinking about, well, first of all, the number 9. The number 9 is a number about culmination. It's a number of kind of tapping into this magician-like quality of being able to take all the lessons learned in a cycle and being able to apply them, being able to work with them and utilize them now as you move into a new cycle. So the number 9 it's really a number that harnesses a little bit of the magic in life. But when I see think on your feet, when we're talking about courage, and we're talking about taking courage or taking action from a place of courage, I think that thinking on your feet is something that for you guys right now, as you're kind of surrendering to what is, it's telling you to be open. This is not a time of overthinking. This is a time of really wanting to feel in flow. And when you feel in flow, that also includes not sitting there and, again, being frustrated and trying to think of 100 million ways something could be done better, or going to bed at night and wondering why your partner doesn't do X, Y, and Z, and worrying about how you're going to move out of your apartment that you hate and you want to go someplace else. It's about being open. So when we think about being in flow, it is being in flow. Instead of trying to fight the current, we can turn around and swim with it and go a heck of a lot farther. So this is kind of where I feel once you open yourself up to the curiosity of your life, to kind of getting a grounded bearing to, okay, what is in my life? You know, my work life is fantastic. I love it. But my home life needs help. This is where I'm feeling frustrated and blocked, or vice versa. I'm so frustrated at work that it's carrying over into me being able to feel in flow and enjoy my home life. And so there's some aspect of yourself where you're feeling like you're swimming upstream and that you can't just like lay back and float on your back and enjoy floating with the current. Now, when you start to tap into what part of your life you don't feel in flow with, that you feel like you're pushing, that you feel like you're frustrated, that you feel or wish or hope would change, then this is where, instead of trying to create this crazy plan of action or trying to overthink, like if you're like, hey, I do want to actually submit that proposal to my boss, instead of sitting there and just contemplating and deliberating and worrying, it's about being like, you know what? I'm going to try that. And if, as I'm developing this, something else comes to mind and I tap into some other aspect of myself, I'm going to go with that. So maybe you start to build out that PowerPoint presentation and realize as you're building that PowerPoint presentation that, you know what? You'd rather just verbally wing it in front of your boss, and that the PowerPoint presentation really isn't your thing. So instead of trying to force yourself again to fight against another part of your experience that doesn't feel in flow, you take it back to yourself. You tap into your intuition and what does make you feel more in flow. You realize, you know what, I'm better at when I'm just chatting with somebody. I'm a great salesperson when it comes to just me interacting and engaging from a place of authenticity instead of an overplanned place. Or let's say you're in your home and you realize, you know, there is an aspect where you kind of are frustrated with your partner. Well, there's this component of like, okay, maybe you wish your partner was more hands-on in the home, let's say. Let's say you're the type of person you're the clean freak and you're the person who wants everything in its place. And you're just so tired and frustrated of having to like work around a person who doesn't value those things. They don't care if there's the laundry basket in the corner filled with laundry. They don't care if it's not important to them if the countertop is cluttered with 2 weeks worth of mail. They don't care if they've just cooked an amazing meal and the stove is covered in half the food. Instead of being frustrated every day when you come home from work, or living just every day frustrated that this person just won't value what you value, this is when you have to think on your feet and really take the courage to find ways, the little ways in the moment, to tap back into your personal power to bring that action back to yourself. So if you realize that you value a clean and tidy environment, but are with somebody who doesn't, well then again, the power has to come back to you. What does this entail? Does it entail in the moment you realizing that this dirty stove it bothers you a lot? And it bothers you because, as we dive into curiosity, why does it bother me? It bothers me because we are actually living in a new home and this stove is brand new and it already looks like it's 15 years old, and you really want to, you know, take ownership and pride of the things that you have. And so in the moment, this is where you get the chance to do one of two things. Realize your partner isn't going to change. Your partner isn't going to one day wake up and value something they don't already value. Generally, that's the way it works. But you can do one of two things. You can make the internal choice to kind of release and say, you know what? I'm just grateful that they enjoy cooking and that I get to come home to this amazing meal. And I'm going to fight back the frustration to realize I value this stove and I value the things that are in my life, and I'm going to take it upon myself to take responsibility to be the one to really help maintain that. And I'm going to see it from that perspective of like, this is my place and purpose. My place and purpose in my relationship is to bring this beautiful, and I do think it's beautiful, the beautiful element of structure, organization, cleanliness, but also respect for the things that we have in our life. And I'm going to be the one that focuses on that. And I'm going to remind myself that I'm going to be more in flow and in sync with my personality instead of trying to force somebody else to value the same things that I do. And as you're doing that, you get a chance to see then where your partner fits in by releasing your attempt to force them to become something else and stepping up into your true role and power as to where your abilities, needs, and dreams and desires are pushing you to take action. You allow them to take action in a different way on their behalf. So let's say they do love cooking and this is their creative passion. Well, you get to allow them to enjoy that. You also give them support through not coming home and harping on the fact that they didn't clean the stove when they're so happy to have just been able to provide you with this dinner. And now you've made a positive experience for them turn into a negative experience. And this is where, yes, this is a self-connection reading, but we're always engaging with others. No person lives on an island. And so there is this quality of, again, bringing the element of frustration back to ourselves to transmute it. And to really take a look at the perspective change of what we're trying to do here is answer where we fit in. Where are our strengths? What are we meant to teach others? So let's say you have children in the house. It's your place to help teach the importance of maintaining what you invest in. And maybe it's your partner's job to help teach creativity and passion through cooking. And so these are ways that we can kind of, again, go against. This is where we get a chance to, in the moment, choose a different way than just verbal vomiting frustration. Or having to go down the tried and true path of, coming home and seeing something that disrupts you and to say, well, we have to we need to have a talk. Instead, maybe this is the moment where you get a chance to think quickly on your feet and you are able to help have a different type of discussion with your loved one. To be able to show your perspective of the whole experience. And it's not this long, drawn out, overthought thing. It's in the moment just saying, oh, I'm so proud. Thank you so much for making this amazing meal. I so appreciate it. And even maybe laughing, like, oh, look at I can eat all the good leftovers that are left on the stove, but to say, I fully enjoy cleaning up after what you created because what you create is just so wonderful. Thank you for your help. And that's really where you're living in the present. You're thinking on your feet, you're living in the present, and you're connecting with yourself in an authentic way. It is not authentic to have emotional outbursts. It's really not. And I know that we can, a lot of us are emotional. We're all emotional beings. But how we express our emotions is different to each one of us. But there is this component of where when we're not connected to ourselves and we are trying to constantly fight and fight and fight, the level of frustration builds and the level of disconnection between our internal authentic selves grows. And this is where we have these emotional outbursts that are not productive, that either come out in ways that end up hurting somebody else to where they can't hear what you are trying to say, or where you end up kind of running away and again taking the passive aggressive tactic of sitting down to dinner and almost being like a child where you're like slapping your fork and knife down on the plate and you're chewing kind of annoyed and you keep looking over at the stove and sighing and you're like, oh God, gee, yep, this is delicious, but man, it's going to take me 2.5 hours to clean that stove. It's like, well, that's not going to make anything better. It's not going to make anybody happy. Or it's where you just let it fester and let it fester and let it fester until finally you explode, and that's when your partner's like, where the heck did this come from? So when we're looking at bringing awareness to ourselves, we're looking at bringing awareness to working and being in constant communication and in constant awareness of ourselves. And so again, bringing this back to work, if you're starting to take action in one way, but it doesn't feel authentic to you, and then in the moment you change it up, that's fine. That's actually you starting to understand how you work, what works best for you. I think so many of us get out of that alignment of being in tune to ourselves that we don't understand our own unique abilities. That, yes, perhaps in the corporate work world, everybody's pushed to create PowerPoint presentations. But if that's not a strong point for you, then why fight even harder and swim even more upstream against the current to try to swim with the current? Instead, this is where we're starting. We have to start to swim with the current. We have to take a lay of the land and see where we are, and then start to swim with the current within ourselves first. To say, you know what, yeah, maybe my boss is expecting a PowerPoint presentation, but again, I'm going to rely on my strong ability to connect on a strong interpersonal, emotional level just in me talking. And that's fine. That's you working with yourself. You don't have to have the PowerPoint presentation if that is going to be the struggle that you never finish. And so there's always this half-finished PowerPoint presentation that's now even becoming an extra layer of frustration as to why you can't help take action towards solving the issues of the inefficiencies in your work. I hope this makes sense. I feel kind of like I'm rambling, but I think really for you, Sagittarius, this month, it's about focusing again on taking stock of truly what is, bringing it back to gratitude for what is, and then making the decision as to really seeing why you're frustrated in certain areas and perhaps how that frustration is actually highlighting a skill set. Maybe you're frustrated with the inefficiencies at work because in reality, you have a strong skill set for efficiency, to create efficiency. And that maybe in working to create a more efficient solution-based program for your work, you realize that this is something you really enjoy working with and want to do this on a larger level. Or maybe in just simply discovering that you are the person who is highly organized. You like cleanliness. You value maintaining your personal space and the objects that you choose to invest in, that you can take that a step further and maybe help others organize. Show others the importance of maintaining an orderly environment to help them battle against a chaos, the sense of chaos that can actually lead to anxiety a lot of times. This could be help somebody organize their a home office. Or just by being able to step in and realize, this is what I'm good at. And actually, I shouldn't mind doing this because this is what I'm good at. This is me filling my role in my place. This is why I feel called to do this. Because it's within me. It's a need of mine. It might not be a need of another's, but it's a need of mine to fulfill. Okay, so now for the last card, we're going to pull one came right out. We're going to pull a card for contemplation. And contemplation is the final principle in the Triad of Engagement. And it is, I don't say it's the most important, but it's the final principle for a reason, because it connects curiosity within courage and the action you took based on the curiosity that you had towards something. And you get a chance in contemplation to reflect and integrate and learn from the consequences and the reactions that happened as you took action. And this is where we get a chance to continue with self-education. This is really where we get a chance to tap into self-growth and evolution. This is where we get to see what's worked and what we need to work on. So for you, you have protection. And it says, call back your power, cut the cord, soul retrieval. And I think that this is actually really beautiful with the surrender to what is. There's this quality of, when you think about it, when we're not surrendering to what is, when we're fighting and fighting and fighting, we are not in alignment with us. We are fighting systems. We are entangling our own energy with the energy of things that don't work well with us. And when I think about call back your power, soul retrieval, there's this level of, where have you been giving parts of yourself away? Through frustration, through not allowing yourself to basically be at peace, to surrendering to what is, so that you can start to build in this awareness of, okay, well, where do I want to spend my time? If I, am not happy with my current living situation, but yet I know that this is what is for right now. Well, instead of fighting against it, where have I been giving a little bit of myself away? And not fully moving in and just enjoying this for the moment, to say, this is all I can afford right now. This is where I am. But I would like to have a nicer bed and mattress. So you know what? That's what I'm going to focus on getting for myself. And I'm going to focus on enjoying my room and my private space in there. I'm going to get some nice little toiletries in the bathroom. Or I really love cooking. And you know what? I have been putting off buying that really nice knife set. I've been using this hand-me-down one, and all the knives are dull, and it just makes me feel like I don't want to cook at home. I'm going to just invest in a knife set. And I'm going to start there. And I'm going to pull back a little bit of the power I've been giving away to the future. And I think sometimes we don't understand that. Like when we're in a place of contemplation really should be grounding us in the now. Contemplation and meditation specifically are best applied when you are in the moment, connecting with yourself. And not connecting with this fantasy version and not connect. Now, granted, yes, there are times when you can utilize advanced meditation techniques where there are visualization techniques to visualize what you'd like in the future, visualize manifestations, or visualize parts of yourself in the past to bring up things that might need to be dealt with. But in general, when you're thinking about just incorporating contemplation into your ability to just keep aware of yourself and how you are engaging with your life experience. Contemplation is where you are actually in the moment integrating lessons. You are in the moment saying, oh, whoa, I just took action there and that didn't quite work out the way I wanted. I'm going to try it again a little differently. Or it's where we get a chance to see how much we've been giving away of ourselves to a fantasy or to a place of work and fantasizing about how much better it could be, when in reality you don't even really care that much. That if you're given the opportunity to create a presentation and actually be involved in creating change in your work, you wouldn't want to do it. And yet you've been giving away so much of your time and energy complaining about it. And this is where self-awareness really comes into play. That you have to realize the type of person you are, start to unlock those talents, unlock what you bring to any situation, but also understand, okay, if I'm the type of person that when I think about being offered the opportunity at my place of work to be part of the change, would I look at that as a benefit, or would I simply be frustrated that now I have another job to do? And if the answer is B, then one of two things. You need to just release your whole frustration around inefficiencies at your job or what you don't like about your job, and just find other ways to, basically find other ways to fill your time, fill your thoughts, redirect your energy towards other aspects of your life. Or you simply need to realize, wow, I really don't care about my work. I've been complaining. I've been in this place of kind of complaining because everybody complains about their job, right? But in reality, now you're realizing, wait a second, I don't even really care. And do I really want to work at a place I don't care about? And one that frustrates me to boot? Like, do I really want to do that? And then this is where we get to these aha moments of like, oh my gosh, I don't have to keep working here. I could start applying for other jobs. I could start looking to do something different. And this is where we start to engage. We start to engage with ourselves, and we start to take action from that internal place. Okay, you know what? I'm going to start sending out my resume. That's an action I can take. Or I can take the action of continuing to just complain, but the realization now that even if I was asked to help, I wouldn't want to. Well, that kind of is like the big beacon of curiosity, spotlight. Hey, P.S., you really don't care that much about your job. You complain about it all the time, but in reality, you don't really care. So it's time to really make a change there. Or same thing with your life, your home life. If you've been complaining about where you live, but you realize if you had the opportunity tomorrow to take that $30,000 you've been sitting on in the bank and put it as a down payment towards a house, you actually probably wouldn't take that opportunity. Well, then maybe it's time to reevaluate what you really want. Is it really that you don't like where you're living now because you don't have you feel like you don't have enough to move into this perfect house? Or is it you've been sitting on $30,000 in the bank, which you very easily could have had a home at this point, but haven't been moving on anything, haven't even been looking at listings, haven't talked to friends or even looked at areas, and yet you keep living in this fantasy world of frustration as to where you're currently living. And in reality, it's just the fact that the apartment you're living in maybe isn't for you, but you could easily move to a new apartment. It's not about, well, one day when I have a home, and then getting frustrated that you don't have this home and that, and it's like, well, in reality, you have the money. And anything could be considered a home. Any apartment. Heck, you could be a nomad and create a home anywhere you go. You could use that $30,000 to travel the world for a year. So it's more about finding the underlying cause for the frustration. But first you have to take a look at what is. No, you don't. You're not currently trying to invest in a house. That's not part of what is. What is that you're living in a one-bedroom apartment in the middle of this place. Okay, where do you go from there? I hope this has made sense. I hope this has been a little bit of an illuminating topic of self-reflection for the month of July and moving into August. Sagittarius, you are I always call the sign of Sagittarius the spiritual adventurer. And I think what's so beautiful about your sign is that you have this ability to kind of be the bee of the zodiac. You get this beautiful chance to really cross-pollinate between different friend groups and between different experiences in different locations, because you're not afraid to travel, you're not afraid to talk to people, you're not afraid to take on new experiences and challenges. And that sometimes that can lead, though, to you having a muddled sense of yourself, because you have your hands in all of these things. And you are kind of like this spiritual adventurer, so you're always like out and doing stuff. And it's like sometimes what is needed is to come back to you, to call back your power and cut your cords. Cut the cords that you're tied to just because you've tied yourself to them. Like, are you tying yourself to a job you don't care about? Are you tying yourself to the dream of buying a house that ultimately you're not taking action on because when you really think about it, you don't want to? The idea of spending the next 40 years in the same place does not actually appeal to you, even though you felt like this is what you should be doing with the money you've been saving. These are the questions that start to unlock that greater sense of who am I, and start to help you answer that. But answer it authentically for you, not to answer this in comparison to others. Not answer this with self-judgment or judgment from others. If we're looking to work with the flow, then you have to work with yourself. You have to work with your own needs and your own abilities and your own strengths. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to see them and take them for what is. You have to take internally what is as much as externally what is. All right, Sagittarius, I hope you get a chance to take a look at your other readings as well for this month. And I hope you just have a fantastic rest of the day and the rest of the month. And if you'd like to book a one-on-one coaching session or a personal tarot reading, the link to my description or link to my website is in the description box below. Bye, Sagittarius.